Don't get depressed over grain depression. Thank you and welcome to another When It Comes Down to It. We're going to be talking about grain depression here, which is basically the measurement of a dehumidifier and how well it's operating or how much water it's actually removing from the air. That's all it actually does. So we're going to define grain depression because you need to know exactly what it is, and then secondarily we're going to talk about how to measure it properly, and then thirdly we're going to talk about how to troubleshoot it if your grain depression is not as high as you want. In other words, you're not removing as much water as you think you should be. So the first thing we need to understand in measuring grain depression is two things. What's a grain and how do you measure the depression of it, so to speak? The concept of a grain is in the United States measurement system, it is 1/7,000th of a pound. So it's a physical measurement of weight. We used to use it a lot, but it has kind of passed on into the metric system these days. The concept of it is that it is a very, very small measurement of weight. So when we're talking about a depression of 5 or 10 grains or 20 grains, we're talking literally 5, 20, 7,000ths. So it's a very small amount of water. It's nothing we're going to be able to see or put on a scale, so we're going to theoretically calculate it. And we're going to do that by basically understanding the grains going into the machine and then the grains coming out of the machine are measured, and we're going to subtract the higher number, hopefully going in, from the lower number, theoretically coming out. So 80 grains in, 60 grains out, gives you a grain depression of 20 grains. 80 going in, minus 20 grains removed by the dehumidifier, and then 60 coming out of the unit. So in order to measure the in and the out, you need to measure it at the right places, because if you're measuring the wrong locations, you're measuring the wrong grains, and then you don't have a true grain depression on the equipment. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that you're measuring right at the inlet, so right at the filter or top grill or wherever the inlet is on the dehumidifier, and then we want to measure either in the duct going in the outlet, or we want to measure at the outlet, or preferably inside the outlet. Now always remember, if you're putting the probe end inside the outlet, make sure you don't hit the fan blades or anything and destroy the probe and possibly the dehumidifier in the process. So the second most important thing taking measurements is making sure you have a proper meter. Inexpensive meters bought for $100 or $200 typically will not accurately measure grain depression enough to determine a 5 or even a 10 grain differential. They are just not that accurate. You can look up the manufacturer's specs. There's tons of information about that out there. Also, even if you have a great high quality meter, these two are some of the fastest and best in the industry. This is a much newer model than this one. It's a little faster and a little more accurate, but the other problem is, being newer, hopefully it's in calibration, but this one may be perfectly fine in calibration, it may be out of calibration. So even a great meter with bad calibration will give you bad readings, which means your grain depression is not usable. So if you have determined that your grain depression isn't as high as you would like it to be, say you were looking for 20 and you're only getting 10 or even 0, first thing you want to do is make sure that the machine is not in defrost mode. In defrost mode, you could get 0 grain depression, or you actually may get a grain addition because of the fact that as the water is melting off of the coils, it could also be evaporating back into the air. So we're not doing any dehumidification at that point in time, so we could actually see a grain increase. So that's number one. Number two, let's check out our filters and our coils and make sure they aren't clogged with dirt and debris, which is going to slow the airflow or divert it away from the dehumidification part of the machine, causing it to not work. And then of course there's always a possibility that we've had a mechanical issue, like a refrigerant leak or other thing that's happened inside the dehumidifier, compressor failure, and it is just no longer functioning and needs to be replaced out and serviced. So when it comes down to it, now you know what grains are, what grain depression is, how to measure it with a proper quality meter to make sure you get accurate readings, and then most importantly, of course, how to troubleshoot it if you're not hitting your goals. Thanks to C&R Magazine for distribution of the series, and thank you for learning with RTIlearning.com. Yeah, that's it. there we go. Just straight out of the mine. I was just like, it's even worse when you got it in front of you. As my old boss Greg Philman used to say back in the 80s, the most important thing is that the goes in is higher than the goes outer. Grain depression. One of the biggest issues out there, of course, is what? Gluten intolerance. And since people can't eat the wheat grains are depressed about it.